So today we're going to be looking at the equations of circles. You remember the equation of a line, y equals mx plus b, and the equation of a parabola, is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Well, we're going to look at the general form for the equation of a circle. So what two things do we need to know about a circle in order to graph it? Well, we need to know what the center is, which we're going to call hk. It's alphabetical order, just like any ordered pair, x, y, it's alphabetical order. And you need to know the radius of the circle to plot it. So let's say the center is 2, 1, and the radius is 5. So you recall the definition of a circle. It's the locus of points or set of points that are equally distant from a center point. So if that's my center there at 2, 1, I'd have a point on the circle 5 points away to the right. So that would be a point on the circle. And here's another point that would have to be on the circle because, the 3, 4, 5 triangle. And I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem here. I'm going to look at the distance between any point on the circle xy and my center point hk. Now let's look at the legs of this right triangle. The bottom leg would have to be x minus h. And the vertical leg would have to be y minus k. So if I substitute those into the Pythagorean theorem with r being the radius 5, I get a general form for any circle. Here's another point that has to be on the circle. Here's another point that has to be on a circle. And if I just go around plotting all points that are exactly 5 units away from that center point, you see we get our circle. This is the general form, and this is the specific form for this circle. So here we're going to graph a circle with center of -2, 1 and a radius of 3. So we'll go to our graph. Left 2, up 1 puts the center right here, and the radius is 3. I'm going to count right 3, put a point, up 3, left 3, down 3. That's going to be good enough to draw a circle. And there you go. That's all we had to do there. Write an equation for this circle. Well, you got to remember the general form for this circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And then you just substitute. hk is -2, 1. So when you plug that in there, you get x plus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared, and then the radius was 3, so that's 3 squared or 9. Okay, so this one's a little bit more involved. We have a point 3, 0 that we know this circle passes through, and a center at -1, -3. We know to write the equation we need two things. We need to know the radius and the center. Since we have the center, all we really need is the radius. So you could use the distance formula here to find the radius, but this is perhaps an easier way. Write down the formula. Let's plug in the center point, which is -1, -3. And remember they change sign because it's x minus h, y minus k. And instead of doing a distance formula, let's we know it passes through 3, 0. Let's plug that in for x and y. Because 3, 0 is an xy point that we know works in the equation. So if we plug that in, there's only one unknown now, r. And we can figure out what that is without using the distance formula. I think this is a little easier. And then you just, once you find your radius, you just plot the points, and there you go. So why don't you pause the video here, see if you can work these out, just graphing them. The center on the first one's 0, 0, because there is no apparent hk value. So it's x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 4 squared. So that means your radius is going to be 4. And you just plot the points on your graph, draw your circle, you're done. Number 2, what's the center? Should have said 1, -4. And the radius would be the square root of 4, which is 2. So this one's a smaller one. Not much different, maybe some more challenging numbers for you, but same idea. So the center for the first one would be what? -1/2, 3. And the radius, of course, is the square root of 9, so that's 3. We'll plot that on the graph. So you're going to go left 1/2 and up 3. Now to count your radius of 3, you're always going to be between coordinates. So I'm going to go 3 to the right. It's going to put me right here. 3 up, 3 left, and 3 down. Alright, the center on this one's going to be 3, negative 1. The radius is a little weird. It's the square root of 20, which can simplify to 2 root 5. What is that? That's about 4 something, about 4.4. We'll plot that on the graph. 3, negative 1, right 3, down 1. And then you're counting to the right 4.5 maybe. Up 4.5, left 4.5, down 4.5. Okay, so here we need to find the circumference and area for each circle in terms of pi. All we really need for this is the radius. So the center doesn't really affect anything here. The radius we can tell is going to be 6. The square root of 36 is 6. Diameter will be double that. So circumference formula is pi d. Diameter is 12, so that'll be 12 pi. Area formula is pi r squared. Our radius is 6, so that's going to be 36 pi. On this one, the radius is going to be root 24, or 2 root 6. Diameter will be double that, so that's 4 root 6. So it looks like circumference is going to be 4 root 6 pi. And then the area will be pi r squared, so that'll be root 24 squared, which will be 24. Okay, this is by far the most challenging problem in this section. You are given 2 points on the circle. You don't know the center and you don't know the radius, so you have to find both. So if my endpoints of the circle are here and here, where would the center be? Well, it would be the midpoint. It would be the midpoint of those 2 points. So that's what I'm going to do first, is find the midpoint of -4, -4, and 2, 0. Turns out the midpoint's -1, -2, and I can see that on my graph now. That is right in the center. Now all I need is the radius. So I'm going to use the distance formula to go from my center point to one of my endpoints. Doesn't matter which endpoint you choose, either one will work. Looks like the radius is awful, root 13. So there's your equation. And here is your mistake of the day. Hope you have a good one. The test will be soon. That's the end of this chapter. I'll talk to you later.